Okay, awesome. All right, I will get started only because we're also recording. And as people join, I'm sure people are kind of getting back from lunch or they're just getting off from the last Zoom meeting to the next Zoom meeting. So I'll get started and first welcome everyone to uh, our community of practice. We do this quarterly and we bring in experts from around the country to talk about topics that can help our practitioners. And today we're going to talk about technical assistance. And we're going to touch a little bit about programs like the State Small Business Credit Initiative 2.0 that was rolled out by the federal Treasury as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. We've got three amazing panelists on the call with us today. I will start by first introducing Shalawn Garcia, who is the Grant Program Supervisor for the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. Shalawn, if you don't mind coming up mute and introducing yourself, please.
Hi, my name is, first of all, I want to thank you, David, for inviting the Governor's Office of Business Economic Development to be here today. My name is Shalawn Garcia, and I'm the Grant Program Supervisor for the State Small Business Credit Initiative Technical Assistance in partnership with the U.S. Treasury. Thank you for having us here today.
Yes, thank you, Shalawn. Next up, we have Mary Kelly, who's the Data and Reporting Coordinator for Iowa Economic Development Authority. Welcome, Mary.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I started at IEDA about 1 year ago. I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary. Prior to that, I was a student at the University of Iowa. And actually soon I will be reclassified as a project manager on the innovation team. So I'll get to work a bit more with these SSBCI funds and all the programs involving them.
Congratulations. It looks like it's going really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then next up, we have Don Calcote, who's a program director at Mississippi Small Business Development Center. Welcome, Don.
It's good to be here. I appreciate having an opportunity to be part of it, especially working with folks from California and Iowa. So we've all got like minds, and we're looking toward the future to work this out where it works best for all of us.
Welcome. And Don, I know you're very humble, but I'd love for you to also share a little bit about where you've come from.
Oh, that's a good story. I've been a banker and a financial consultant for 45 years. I spent 38 years in banking and then went into private practice and did business consulting. State of Mississippi hired me out of a consulting opportunity that I had that I did for them. And the state of Mississippi hired me to be their actually small business. I worked with SBDC on doing specialized consulting for complex financial matters. And then when the SSBCI program came along, they asked me to head up the TA program. I've got a broad background of a lot of things that I'm involved in, and I happen to love living in Tennessee. So the state of Mississippi lets me live in Tennessee and specifically work on Mississippi business. So that's a great attribute of what I do.
Excellent, excellent. Awesome. Well, welcome. I'm excited to jump into this. I'll point the questions in no particular order, but we'll definitely love to also hear from all of you. I'll start, Shalawn, first with you, and kind of you can help us understand the different types of programs that CaLOSBA, the Office of the Governor, runs in helping small businesses in the state of California.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So the way our office is set up, we have the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, which is GoBiz for short, if anybody is looking for that site. Within that office is the office that I work with, which is the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. And we have multiple programs across multiple industries. For our specific office and the office I work in, which we call CaLOSBA, we have approximately, I'd say a good 8 to 10 active programs at any given time that we're actually developing or designing to serve small businesses. We don't usually do grant programs direct to small business. We do a lot of technical assistance programming in partnership with our SBDCs and our small business network to be able to go out and provide counseling and support services to small businesses. if you don't mind, I'll just comment really quick on the SSBCI part. And so our SSBCI is extremely unique in that we have 3 different state agencies that are running different parts of SSBCI. So the GoBiz branch, iBank is one of our sister agencies. They're running the loan guarantees and the venture capital program for SSBCI. The Treasurer's Office has an organization known as the California Pollution and Control Financing Authority, CPCFA. They are running the collateral support program and the microloan program. And combined, those 2 agencies got, I think, something like $1.18 billion. And then for our office, CaLOSBA, we have 25 million approximately for technical assistance for SSBCI.
Awesome. And we'll come back to kind of go a little bit deeper into the programs themselves. I will just switch really quick to Mary to bring you into the discussion. Mary, if you can talk, and really, I think this will be just interesting for our practitioners because every state is doing SSBCI so differently. One of the things that we were able to see through Iowa is that Iowa's really got like a great spread in terms of going after all the different types of businesses. Could you talk to the SSBCI program for Iowa?
Yeah, totally. So the SSBCI allocation is run through the Iowa Economic Development Authority. So we are a state agency, state authority, but we are not the main or all of the people handling these funds and handling the programs. I'd say we're the central organ, but we have lots of partners doing technical assistance as well as handling some of our program outreach and management. So we are currently running 4 programs through SSBCI. One of them is called our Innovation Continuum. That's a low interest loan program for startups, innovative businesses, or businesses a little bit along the way, but they're in the biosciences, manufacturing, technology sectors. And then we also have a co-investment fund, and that's also through another partner called BioConnect/InnoVenture Iowa. And that's been really vital and really important to Iowa because compared to maybe East-West Coast, there is a bit of a lack in angel investors and other types of VC funds in the Midwest. So that really helps bring along some other follow-on funding for those startups. And then the 2 other programs that are relatively new are the Loan Participation Program targeting manufacturers and the Collateral Support Program. And those are in-house at IDA, and we manage those here. And they also fit really nicely into a lot of the other programs that the Economic Development Authority runs, such as Targeted Small Business and quite a few other things.
Yeah, we'll get back a little bit more in depth as we go through this. Don, I'll bring you in to talk a little bit about Mississippi's program, and also if you can touch on what are you seeing as the gap for business owners to be able to be eligible for these funds. What does it take to get the business owners ready to be able to refer them to a CDFI or to one of these funders?
Okay. State of Mississippi is actually structured similar to Iowa. The MDA and Innovate Mississippi administer the venture capital funds, the matching plans, and the direct loan funds that are coming through Innovate Mississippi. As far as other options, we've got CDFI direct loan funds that are administered through community development financial institutions. And then we've got loan guarantee programs. Currently, we have 3 registered CDFIs that pretty much cover the state. I talked to another yesterday that we're probably going to bring in from the Gulf Coast. And then as far as direct loan or the loan guarantee program, we've got about 20 banks that are going to be participating, and I'm meeting with banks on a regular basis, talking to them about that. As far as gaps in the program, we've got a little bit of a situation that eventually I want to address, and that has to do with SETI targeted loans. Currently, as I said a little earlier, I was a banker for a long time and did a lot of things in banking, but specifically with SETI borrowers, I would like to see a modification in our program to where we had adjusted lending standards to allow borderline individuals who are running businesses the opportunity for credit. And right now, we don't have a vehicle for that. For instance, if you've got a 625 credit score, but the banks are all requiring a 650 minimum, we need a vehicle to be able to modify and provide a guarantee under the SSBCI program that helps those individuals with understanding that they'll get their credit score up over a period of 6 months or 12 months or something like that. Other than that, I think our plan is pretty much tailored for the needs of the state of Mississippi. We're targeting a lot of innovative industry and technology businesses with our VC matching funds and our direct loan funds through Innovate Mississippi, and then some of the things that we will be doing with the CDFI, especially since technically the SSBCI TA program will be working directly with those CDFIs and banks. We've got some targeted industries that we want to go to with those as well.
Excellent. So we'll get a little bit more deeper into that in where this is going. I want to switch a little bit into talking about the design of these programs. And I know every state has done it differently. So Shalawn, I'm going to ask you can share as much or as little as you want on this. But as we think about making this program truly inclusive of every type of business that starts in California, and knowing that, or in the country, and knowing that not all businesses start in the same place, right? Every business has different challenges based on several factors. How do you design a program that's inclusive? And I love how California kind of approached it in a very innovative way in terms of making sure that there's a mechanism to go after every type of business in the state.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I think that was the most exciting part of the process. Our director, Tara Lynn Gray, came up with this idea. She has an extensive background in the tech world, and they use a concept known as mesh network. And so she thought, it's not going to be, in order for us to approach this or go into design, it's not going to be a good idea for us to be thinking about this from one lens or one-sided, like it's CaLOSBA and control, and we're in charge. The whole intent behind this mesh network was that it would be collaborative and with diverse types of partners in diverse parts of the region with diverse backgrounds, touching every industry from every corner of California. And so I won't go into too much detail because I feel like you're going to hit it again later in this conversation. But what I will say is we started by saying, instead of awarding or partnering with one program lead to help us institute this, or one business type, we had 5 different categories. We have a group of CDFIs. We have a group of individuals or entities that have a background in equity. We have, and not equity in the form of funding, but equity in the form of how they run their operations, like that DEI lens. We have partners that are small business development centers, partners that are relationship managers. And so we took pretty much the finance tech people and married those 5 different types of entities to each other to say that we want to be as diverse as possible with the experience, with the organization's leadership, their exposure, their locations, to be as diverse and inclusive as possible with this process. Yeah. And I have a lot I could say, but that's as much as I could say before or overwhelming you. Yeah.
I'll just add one key phrase that is kind of the hallmark as I see the California program, is the ability to bring the trusted connector into the mesh. Because really a lot of the time people are going to go to their community barbecue, they're going to go to the library, they're going to go to places where they feel trusted and connected. And how do you then build pathways to those people so that you truly can go after supporting those business owners? Because what we've seen around the country is that just because there's capital available doesn't mean it is going to reach the people that need it. That this mesh network allowed for bringing in the minority chambers, for bringing in the community organizations, the people that are actually have built decades of trust in the community, so that you could then reach those people. So I love that, that program was able to bring all these components in together. I don't know if either of you want to add. Like I said, like it was just kind of setting the stage for how do you build and design these programs. Happy to have either of you jump in.
I was just going to say, I really like that idea of a trusted connector. With our SBDC partners or other technical assistance partners, I think it is important to have kind of those boots on the ground community partners. And, they're having conversations with business owners all the time. They are well known and they're trusted compared to maybe some people who are sitting at a state agency, a state office. And so it's a little more difficult, either one, to reach us or to maybe trust a state office just due to past relief dollars and programs and whatnot. So it makes it a little more bite-sized and able to reach all communities within Iowa as well as the whole country.
Yeah.
I've here in Mississippi, I have a business counselor that will spend about 50% of her time actually seeking those opportunities for us to market to. And she and I have a stand-up routine that we plan to do within the bounds of working with those trusted connectors and communities to help us actually get into the markets and discuss the programs that are available. So we're going to spread it at a ground roots level.
Yeah. So I'll go to this one topic that's probably on top of a lot of our practitioners' minds, and then we'll come back to talking a little bit more about the trusted connector. And this is a question for all of you. But as we think about reporting and compliance, this is a program that for the first time has put so much burden on the state to be able to collect data on businesses. And a lot of times, and also along with that, has requirements around SETI. That's a word that comes up a lot, which is socially and economically disadvantaged individual, or VSB, which is a very small business. So a lot of times, and when we work with the Treasury, their feedback has been that usually reporting and compliance is an afterthought till the reporting period is due, and then everybody's scrambling and the data is not available. So I would love for you to all kind of touch on, and maybe Don, I'll start with you first, and then we'll go reverse order this time. When we think about reporting and compliance, what are some of the things that Mississippi is doing to ensure that that they're not caught off guard, right? Like the first reporting period is due April 30th, that there is compliance around tracking, measuring, reporting at a very granular level.
Mm-hmm. Well, the state of Mississippi is using EIC's system as far as our initial and our complete gatherer of information. We've put together a pretty extensive questionnaire that, in order for someone to enter the portal specifically to be considered for counseling and going on into it, the portal actually not only gathers all of the required information for the initial reporting of that first interaction, but it also gathers financial information and operational information about their business or the business idea, so that when it finally does come to a counselor, the counselor has an extremely good overview of the design of their business, what their expectations are, what their plans are, and a lot of the time with new businesses, what their dreams are. But it also helps us, and especially me as director, to channel that client specifically to a counselor that has the skill sets that match the complexity of the business. But we've been really pleased with how easy it has been to modify this system that we're using so that it's adapted specifically to the way we expect things to flow when people come into the system.
Yep. And sorry if it seems like it's a plug for us. I'm not talking about the system itself.
Yeah.
I'm more kind of talking about the process. So I apologize if as soon as I asked it, I felt like, looks like I'm staging you all to talk about us, but no.
Well, I thought about how do I do this without sounding like a commercial, but
Yeah.
we've been really pleased with the team and how things have worked for our benefit. So, having said that, that's about the best way to leave it.
Yeah, thank you. So Mary, if you want to just talk about the mechanics of, because Iowa is one of the ones that's furthest along. You're one of the earliest awardees was Iowa. So kind of if you can talk to kind of the system, not the EIC system, but the system around how you created the tracking and the reporting to be able to actually fulfill the April 30th deadline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually my role on the compliance team was mostly created to deal with some of these aspects and the extra reporting requirements. And I'll just ditto everything Don said. EIC has been really helpful. It's nice that you guys are connected with all other states, because then you can kind of give us some feedback on what we could adjust and maybe some ideas. Yeah, internally, we are doing lots of tracking all the time using various reporting systems, including the startup space and EIC platforms, particularly for the loan participation and collateral support programs. We also have those intake forms and surveys that can then go to SBDC and technical assistance. So that not only helps small business owners connect with an advisor, but it also, gets lots of information already prepared for an application and information that we'll need to report back to Treasury just from the get-go. And because they would be connected with a technical assistance provider from that point, it also kind of educates them maybe on those SETI forms, educates them on some other aspects like financial documents on what they need, what they are, and what we specifically are looking for to give back to Treasury. And then beyond that, because we're a state agency, we also have our own reporting requirements, and we just like to track what we're doing. So we can report it back to the director, or we can look over how successful the programs are doing. So we've got lots of files, lots of business management reporting systems tracking all of these quarterly and annually.
Yeah. So Shalawn, she didn't mean to scare you with what she said about how much there is to do. But I think, it's a point well said, which is that you've got reporting requirements for the state. You've got reporting requirements for the federal government. You also have reporting requirements around the scope of work when you have multiple TA providers to ensure that they're also fulfilling the obligation, which is at a more micro level, right? It's almost like a staggered deck of activities that need to be tracked at every level for various compliance. So Shalawn, if you could talk to maybe kind of like the overall design of how you wanted to make sure you captured all of that.
Yeah, I'll say this first. There's nothing wrong with edifying your business and the impact you guys have had to this process. It is important to say that, and it's not a plug. I think it was crucial to our process and how we had to develop and prepare for the compliance and reporting. The way that I actually like to go into these things are not just looking at what the U.S. Treasury guidelines are, but I do actually start with building and designing a program with the reporting and compliance in mind, because I got to be able to say, how are we going to tell the story of impact and outcomes and deliverables so that later down the road or throughout this process, I mean, it's a 5-year program, we're able to look at the data in different milestones and say, we have to pivot. And so first, starting with the end in mind, like who am I trying to serve? And what type of story am I trying to tell while also meeting the requirements of the U.S. Treasury and the state of California. And so the things that we're tracking is everything that the Treasury requires us to track. But at the state level, the things that I know are going to be important to stakeholders and partners, which is what type of impact did we make? The program is about capital readiness. So for us, similar to Mary, we're tracking the number of businesses that received funding through either iBank, which is doing the collateral support. I mean, not collateral support, I apologize. They're doing the loan guarantees, or tracking how many folks landed with CPCFA, which is providing the collateral support, and or any other lending or funding sources that were received for the small business as a result of the TA support. And so we've built our system at a state level to capture that data, to track our progress so that we know if we have to make changes with our outreach and engagement or with our process overall. I don't know if that answers your question completely, but that was the focus or the goal with how we approached it.
Yeah. And for those who are listening, as we advised all of you on the call and others that we support, what we said was we want to make sure that the data collection strategy is upfront built, documented, and implemented, because it's very hard to go back and get data. It's very hard to go back. In fact, we're doing another ARPA program right now where we are individually calling every business owner, because it's their 2-year period, calling over 300 businesses to ask them for their impact data. And if you don't have a data collection strategy up front, then you end up having to do a lot of extra work to go back and measure impact. And if you're not measuring impact, then you can never tell the story. So if you're going to be about storytelling, you're going to have to be about impact. You got to bring your data collection strategies up front. And we have some states where they have left the data collection to the TA providers or to the CDFIs. And the challenge there is that then you get 6 different types of data sets because they're all tracking differently and exporting data differently from different systems. So what we've said is that you also want to standardize data collection across the different systems so that everybody is collecting data the same way, so it can be mapped back to the business owner. So there's no double count, etc. So I just want to add that piece around kind of our philosophy around how we wanted to design data collection systems so that we are in compliance with the Treasury reporting. I want to switch tack and talk a little bit about the referral process, because this is another big component of ensuring that that while we are providing support for business owners, that they don't fall between the cracks. And how do we effectively build a program where the business owner is not giving information multiple times or having, as they switch between advisors, being able to make sure that the handoffs are clean. In the case of Mississippi and Iowa, it's relatively easier because the subset of providers is a little smaller, but I still want both of you to kind of talk to how do you ensure that there is a way for us to know that the business owner that was asking for capital either ended up getting the capital, or it's a 5-year program, is on a pathway somehow to get capital as long as you're fulfilling the requirements of the loan programs. So maybe first I'll have Mary and Don kind of touch on that, and then Shalawn, talking about a state like California that's kind of so massive, the criticality of having a very strong referral process so that the business owner is not getting the runaround, and the business owner is not, every time they go to a different provider, they have to start all the way from scratch. They have to send all their documents, etc., to prevent that from happening. What are some best practices? So Don, why don't I start with you? Even though you all have a group of advisors, there still needs to be handoffs, or if it's not for the loan programs and it's for the VC programs, there needs to be handoffs to the equity play as well. How do you ensure that there are clean handoffs? And there's a system element to it you can touch on, but also kind of the building the relationships and making sure that there are clear lines of communication between the various providers.
Yeah, the very best way to say it is because we were able to design this program specifically to fit the way we do things with our financial institutions and with our service providers. We actually have it to where I make the decision on who the client goes to for counseling. And as I said earlier, different counselors have different skill sets. So if it's somebody that's extremely financially savvy in their business model, and they need someone that's got a real strong analytical and financial background, then we've got counselors that can handle specifically that. But the interesting thing is once that loan package, once that loan package is prepared and ready to present to a funds provider, the counselor and I will make the decision on who that actually goes to for the first round. Because normally our history here in the state, but since we have such a good relationship with CDFIs and with the commercial banks that are really savvy when it comes to financial business finances. We make that decision and follow through with a reporting mechanism where the lender actually keeps us posted on the development of the loan. And if it seems like it's a very rare thing that if we place a client with a bank that they don't secure financing. And part of that is the fact that the bankers all know that my criteria for choosing a bank is I wouldn't recommend a client to you unless I'd make the loan myself during my history as a banker. So there's a reputation there that's on the line, but there's also a relationship that I feel really strongly about. And I like the opportunity to work with those bankers and the counselor because I know what the banker needs when it comes to having that proper information that they can make a decision and their loan committee can make a decision. And it's a simplified way of doing it, but it really keeps that it keeps the channel open between the client and the financing source as it routes through us.
And Mary, for you, you have the luxury that all of the programs sit within the state. So how do you help kind of navigate the movement of the business owner's information between the TA and then also within the programs, making sure that they're part of the right program, and how do we make sure that they go through to completion?
Right. So with the co-investment fund, the VC part of this, that's really quite external from what we do. Most of that is done by our partner, and so we don't handle any of that information. They make the deals. So that's really smooth sailing. That's been happening for a while. They've been making deals for a long time. So that is all good to go. And then same with the innovation continuum. That really that's also a state program using state dollars. So it really just fit in right into what we were already doing. And for the application and review process of that, we have our partners, VentureNet Iowa. They do all of that intake, all of the paneling and review of a business and getting them ready to pitch to our board. So that's a really clean handoff just because they're a small team, we're a small team, and we've been working together for many, many years. So that's also quite ironed out. As far as the collateral support and loan participation programs, those I would say are more in the toddler stages of getting the outreach and getting the program up and running. So I think as of now, it's more of a multi-pronged approach. So we do use the EIC platform to facilitate some of those TA handoffs and just hand off information generally through the platform. But I would say we get referrals either from a lender directly or from a business owner contacting us, and then we connect them with a TA provider or with a lender. So I think because Iowa has the benefit of being relatively small, relatively well connected, and everyone is quite friendly and willing to help out all the time, it's easy to make those connections by word of mouth and get everyone where they need to be.
Yeah, and since the SBDC is already a state partner, it's very easy to also, already those communications lines exist between IEDA and the SBDC, Iowa SBDC. So the handoff process already existed prior to SSBCI.
Yes, it's really easy to share information and share platforms, all of that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So Shalawn, I'll come over to you, and don't be shy talking about kind of, because a state like California needs a lot of things to make sure that the handoffs are happening, especially given that there are so many different types of players. And even within a community, 3 different groups might be providing 3 different services to the same business owner.
That is correct. California is very complex with how the referral process is going to need to work and be impactful. Just so you know, I have a staff of 4 people, and we have over 4 million small businesses in California. And so with that, in order for this program to be impactful and effective, we needed to have that mesh network that our director developed to be able to say we got to have our tentacles reach as far and as wide and cast that net as big as we can to be able to get the services to all the small businesses in California. And so our process is a little different. We don't have I shouldn't say what we don't have, but to be more impactful, the smarter or the wiser approach was to use that network of partners. We have really strong TA partners, and have the process work with. They're already boots on the ground. They already have the relationships. And it's like you said, they're trusted in the community. Every single awardee in this process, and we have can't say the number yet because we're still in the process of executing, but it's a pretty large network. Within the network of awardees, we set it up where they will be the main point of contact for the network that they already have, and for the region that they already serve, and for the industry types that they already serve. And so that's going to cover us from urban, rural, metropolitan, across the entire state. There's not a single region in California that will not have coverage from this network. At the lead or at the head of this, let's just say somebody doesn't have a relationship. We have a network manager that's managing all of these different partners that we're going into an agreement with. They're going to manage all of those partnerships. If a small business wants to get help and they don't already have that relationship, they would start with the network manager, who's kind of like at the top of this hierarchy, to say, hey, we're going to find an organization to place you with once we do our own initial intake with you. If you're ready, we're going to walk you over to one of the capital providers in the mesh network to get your financing. If you're not ready, we're going to do the technical assistance right here in-house to get you ready, to handhold you over until you're ready to go to a capital provider. And then all of the other 4 categories of the types of partners we're working with, they all can do all of the above. They can do the TA, and they can also do the hand-holding or walking them to a capital provider. I think the technical parts of the communication, which is what you asked about, to keep it from getting or overwhelming a small business, is that they have one application in the portal that they will have, and that application will stay with them no matter where they land in the referral network or partnership. So the goal is you get to stay with your TA provider, but if for some reason they have to refer you out because they don't have all of those in-house services, your application will follow you to the referral partner so that you don't have to start back all over again or go through a long, tedious process to keep building relationships with different partners in the network. And so, yeah, and then also, I guess, for the sake of keeping their individual brands and identity and the relationship good, we wanted to give them that autonomy to be able to keep the relationship for as long as possible. So we won't touch those small businesses, but we'll have them start with the partners they already have. And if they don't have one, they'll come in by way of the network manager, who will handhold them from the top throughout the entire process.
Yeah, and the goal is that through this program, every business owner that wants capital over the next 5 years can be made capital ready to be able to get the capital. That's correct. So, right. And so thinking about how do you make sure that this referral process goes all the way to the lender, like Don was saying, like he wouldn't make a referral if he didn't think he could fund it himself, and have that confidence so that they can have that conversation with the lender. But big picture, the Treasury is also interested in that did this move the needle to actually more businesses getting funded? Because almost every business you talk to says, would say that capital is their most important need, even if it isn't, right? Businesses feel like capital is what's kind of restricting them from growing. And this program gets more businesses eligible for that. And Shalawn, if you could touch on the fact that really what you're measuring at the state level is everything sounds great, but what you're really measuring, what are you really measuring at the state level?
Our magic number, I always say in our meetings.
You don't have to say the number if you don't want to.
I won't say the number because people cringe when I say it, but our bottom line is that we have a set number, a minimum number of businesses that will actually be funded as a result. So it's not just the U.S. Treasury's goals and saying they're going to get technical assistance for legal, accounting, and finance. The layer that we've added at CaLOSBA is per partner in our network, how many businesses are you committing to funding by any means necessary, legally, of course, either through grants, loans, or equity fund, whatever, or non-dilutive sources, any type of funding you can put in the hands of these businesses that have been counseled. We're counting that. We have a goal or metrics for every partner to measure that quarterly, monthly, annually, until we get to the end of the 5 years to be able to say that we moved the needle.
Yeah. So I'm going to, at a very high level, without any visual diagram, kind of talk about the process that we've created, that the states that we support with. We've kind of built a system that we think captures everything, because there was a question that was asked about, would you demo the platform? We are not going to demo the platform. We're going to just kind of talk broadly that could be applicable to any state that's doing this, and it's agnostic of the platform. It doesn't have to be our platform. Any platform can do this. While I'm doing that, I wanted to think of a success story. I know this program is brand new, but you've all been helping with programs. I know in Iowa, we've already had some runway, but to kind of think through why a program like this is critical, to kind of just add some visual color, right? To like, how can this program be transformative while you are either writing the application to the Treasury or work you've done in the past. But I'll just pause to kind of talk about the overall picture. The idea was that we wanted to have the business owner approach one person and have that idea that buck stopped with that person, that whoever they went to now was the primary person that led them through the entire process. So the business owner didn't have to keep coming back and regurgitating their information every time they went through the process. Because what we found in a lot of cases, this disenfranchises businesses, especially minority businesses, because they feel like they're getting the runaround. And a lot of times it ends up with a rejection letter that doesn't even state why they have been rejected, which means they can never actually go and fix the problem. So we've seen this statistically in surveys and studies we've done. So we said it sits with the person. That person will be accountable from beginning to end. They don't have to be the one that provides the service. But if it comes to somebody, there's an intake process that immediately tracks that business owner's information and makes that information available to anybody else in the system that is going to be providing downstream services. That person also ensures that if there are any federal requirements around SETI certification or any other federally required information is collected up front, so that the business owner doesn't have the burden of having to provide that information again. Once that's done, then the business is actually evaluated for readiness. So there's a readiness checklist that helps us understand whether the business owner actually qualifies to go through this process as is, or like Shalawn said, maybe there is a process where they need to go to the SBDC, or they need to go to somebody else that has a whole suite of services also available for free, but just not immediately ready to get capital. So the business owner is under no illusion that whatever the next step is them getting capital. So there's a readiness checklist. Once that checklist is completed, then the business owner, then the TA provider or the very first person that got that business owner creates a scope of service. So a scope of work that essentially outlines, based on the assessment, what is needed next. After the scope of work is done, then the TA provider, the primary TA provider, decides, is it them or is it somebody else in the network that can provide the service? Because not every TA provider has all the capabilities. And then that's where the network effect comes into play. They're not now going and searching for somebody. They're not going to try and validate the next provider. That provider is part of the network. You do a clean handoff to the provider that can actually provide the service. The business owner goes to that provider, but does not have to repeat all the information, because that provider knows what is that next needed service. So let's say the business owner comes in and doesn't have financial readiness. They will be sent to a financial advisor who can get them ready with the financial documents. Then they are rerouted back to the primary TA provider, who actually is responsible for getting them access to the capital. Once that process is done, they might do a second or third referral. But once the checklist is complete, now the time comes to actually make a referral to the lender. And like Don said, we're all hoping that once this is done, that the lender looks at it and says, as part of the network, the lender has an obligation now to actually go through with fulfilling the funding requirement. It could be a myriad of ways they can do the funding. It's not just one. It could be collateral support. It could be loan guarantee, whatever method that fits to be able to get the business funding. And then once that's done, we get a report back to show that that loop is complete, so we can actually vet that the system worked and that the business owner actually got the funding. And this loop is not a linear line, right? It's a lot of circles. Like it is a line that might go 5 different ways, but this is a 5-year program. We're expecting that over the length of the program, that any business that was put into the system that said they needed funding was actually brought to a logical conclusion. And there might be a small chance they might not be fundable for some other reason, but at least the business owner knows that so that they can go back in and work on those things, either in part of the capital readiness process or as part of the TA process. So that's the system we've designed. Any system can do this that has data collection, reporting capabilities, the ability to allow multiple different types of providers to work out of the same system. A lot of the limiting factors usually with systems are that they don't allow collaboration because of the confidentiality of the data. And if they're not able to map confidentiality well, it's hard to then pass data along. So the system needs to be able to have confidentiality settings for the data to protect the small business owner's information, but also the ability to collaborate between different provider types so that there can be the collaboration plus the confidentiality both put into there. So I'll pause here. I know there's a question that's come in as well, and we'll answer that question. And then I would love to then from there jump into kind of a little bit of the storytelling part of this. So the question is around privacy, and that is usually the first question that TA providers ask when we tell them that they need to collaborate. The first thing they say is, well, we can't collaborate because we have to guarantee privacy. But the magic of modern day systems is that you can do both. You can set confidentiality status. The business owner, and by the way, I'm a small business owner. My EIN has to be on the internet. The amount of times I've had to give my EIN, almost like even to get coffee, I have to give my EIN number. It feels that way, right? Like I'm like giving it to everyone. But I do value my privacy and I get it. And I want the people that I give my information to be good stewards of my data and to make sure that it's never misused and it's never provided. So we use the practice of least access at every stage. So least access means only the person that needs to see this information has access to this information. That people do not have nice to have, or maybe if I need to, none of that. Only people that actually are working with the business owner and only in a very limited capacity. So even when we do the handoffs in our system, the handoffs don't give the next person all the business owner's data. It only gives them pertinent data to complete their step. It is not to say now the business, because the tracking is already at the business owner's level. You don't need every provider to have all the data to be able to provide this service. But I'll open it up to the three of you. If you want to add any other comments as well, would appreciate your comments before we go into the last phase, which is the storytelling.
Yeah, I would just like to mention a little success. And once again, yeah, with data sharing and security, that's definitely a top priority. And as you mentioned earlier, it's a little bit easier with Iowa and the Iowa SBDC. But then when it comes to other service providers, yeah, it's a need to know basis, essentially. Yeah. But recently we actually did implement a little bit more to that survey and to that readiness checklist with the TA providers and the referrals. And it worked like magic. It really, the next day after we had put that link up on our website, we had so many more people signing up for TA assistance and just trying to get started with these programs rather than any lenders approaching us with a business owner that is already ready for credit and capital. But yeah, it's going to be great to see how those referral forms work out and how we'll be able to capture the help that they received from the initial beginning of maybe needing some help with business plan and whatnot to finally reaching the stage where they receive financial assistance.
Yeah. Don or Shalawn?
What I would add to what Mary said, there's not a lot because I would pretty much parallel what they're doing. But what we have done is actually given the responsibility to that initial contact person, that initial TA provider. Their responsibility is not really to hand things off, but to handhold them through that process. So the client actually knows, the applicant actually knows this is my champion here. This is the person who is steering me through the myriad of different opportunities and different needs. From a practical standpoint, one of the things that we uncover a lot of the time with especially new business starters is that they don't have the business background. They don't have the business management skills that, first of all bankers consider are necessary. And secondly, they really need. So we've actually got, we've developed a series of about 12.5 training modules that are online available, that at the end of the module, which is 15-20 minutes long, they actually do a questionnaire, and they have to pass that with 4 out of 5 questions answered correctly in order to have that checked off in their readiness. And the bankers have appreciated that significantly. You know, once you've got somebody that understands financial ratios, not complex ratios, but easy financial ratios, or how to read a balance sheet, or what their P&L budget comparison actually shows, it brings a lot of weight to that loan decision when a banker is on the line as to whether or not to make a loan.
Yeah, well said. Shalawn?
So far, most of the partners that we have selected, they are used to playing nicely in the sandbox together with each other. And we haven't launched yet, so we don't really know yet how small businesses are going to respond to what this process looks like. But what I will say is, for some preventative or proactive, I should say, between our partners, we thought they're not technically competitors, but they kind of are. We had our system built to make sure that they all have their individual portals leading them into one main portal, but they can only see the information that they actually input. So to get people comfortable with using our mesh network, we had our partner, EIC, wink, wink, create individual profiles for each of the awardees. And I think we have 30 plus awardees. They'll each have their own portal within the system that only they have access to. And if they decide to refer out to a subsequent partner, certain data that we think is confidential or sensitive will be blocked out from that referral partner until the time comes that it has to be shared or released. So that's just our initial, but we won't really know what we have to revise or adapt to until after the program goes public. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's end with some stories, if you don't mind. Would love to hear from each of you, a little bit about kind of, you can either talk about a business that has already received funding or other programs where you've seen this effective. I know that you all have been involved with technical assistance in general. So would love to kind of, bring it back to, and the reason I want to end with this is to say that like this work really matters. And this work is really about people that are trying to build their dreams, trying to create wealth for their families. And this is about helping level that playing field for people, right? This is about getting people that are starting a business as a way to bring income and wealth for their families. And a lot of times are stymied by the fact that they don't have access to capital that can help them get to the next level. So this work is very meaningful. This work is helping the community. And I want to just end on that note saying that while it might seem like all of these reporting burden and all of the, making the sausage, if you will, it seems like there's a lot going on, or baking the bread. But at the end of the day, this is about helping people and helping people build their dreams. So I'd love to kind of end with a story or something that you've seen in your community that can speak to that. I don't know. Don, you're off mute. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. First of all, we are right in the midst of our first week of rollout. So all I know right now is that we have about 15 people in the portal that are finishing up that process. I am aware that 2 of them were previous clients that were not able to get funding through normal traditional means for businesses because of lack of capital and weakness in some things having to do with their business plans. But I know how this will be received as far as SSBCI once we take those clients through that. And they're both extremely deserving. One is a husband and wife who have developed a program. They actually developed a business during COVID, and it is going to open the doors for them to be independently employed on something that will really do well for them and their family. So I'm looking forward to hand-holding them through this process once we get them through the portal.
Awesome. Mary?
That's great, Don. Yeah. We've made about 5 or so transactions with the collateral support program. 2 of them come to mind that are pretty exciting. One of them was for a new hair salon, a young woman in her 20s. She was able to get capital because of this program, because she was able to secure some more collateral, even though she's relatively young and it's her first business. And then another one was actually a restaurant and bar that had closed down, mainly due to COVID. But then a couple had moved from out of state into Iowa, which is always a plus. And they took over the business, and they were remodeling and doing some more startup with that, so they could open both of those up also in rural areas of Iowa. And one of the main goals of the SETI program is to reach some of our rural business owners, as well as minorities, women, and others. So that was really wonderful to see that those could open up.
Yeah. And that's amazing because it also revitalizes the community, because we know that when you close a restaurant, you might lose the economic capital, but you also lose social capital. And the social element of the community. So that's brilliant that this fund actually helped bring that back to the community.
Yes, I believe it was one of the key local restaurants of the community, so they were able to revive it, which was wonderful.
Amazing. Shalawn, I'll give you the last word on this.
Well, thank you. I was going to say our program doesn't launch until tomorrow, so no success stories yet, but I do want to say 2 things about the impact and importance of this, or the things I'm excited about. One, that 63% of our awardees are ethnic-led and or LGBTQIA. So we are excited about the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece of representation to go out and speak to the SETI and the VSB population. That's my first thing that I'm super excited about. The second is kind of touching on what Mary just shared a few minutes ago about restaurants and the social impact. And I actually was a former restaurateur. And so for me, this program is visceral, it's very personal. Been a business owner for 30 years. Most of the folks that work in our office are either business owners or have family members that are business owners. And so to have a program that gets people capital ready, especially folks that have had barriers to access to capital, I think it's a huge game changer. I've never seen anything like this in my entire 30 years of being a business owner. So I'm just excited that we have a tool to use to go out and bring it to the people. So super excited. So by the time the next time we do this, I should be able to have some success stories and some numbers to share for our story, right?
Yep, absolutely. So basically you said what I was going to say. We're going to bring you all back. We're going to bring you all back to talk about this. But this was so important today because we're a community of practitioners. You can't go to school for this stuff, right? Like there's no college or university or certification you can get to actually do this work. And so we learn by talking about our work and sharing best practices across the communities. We've been doing this for 3 years, and this has helped kind of get more people involved in this work and constantly kind of cross-sharing and collaborating of this work. So I'm really grateful for the time you've spent with us today. This, like I said, goes to about 6,000 practitioners on our podcast once this webinar is done. But I'm really looking forward to the success stories. I'm really looking forward to how many businesses have been able to bring to life their dreams as a result of this. And I'm excited for all the different types of communities that are going to be revitalized through this work. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the panel today. And I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Of course.